Welcome to the Nightly Rant
with
your hosts, Mike
and Torya.
This is the show where we examine society from a sarcastic point of view.
If you like insane conversations, this is definitely the show for you.
Let's get into today's topic. YPN people, I don't know about you, but I love helping out a friend. That's why I want to shout out my friend Brian Little and his podcast, Your Favorite Blockhead. This is the only show that manages to weave together peanuts and MMA into one heck of an amazing podcast. You can find Your Favorite Blockhead wherever your favorite podcasts reside and at yourfavoriteblockhead.com. Do me a huge favor and listen to Brian's show. You'll be entertained and you'll help out a friend. Now, as I said, let's get into today's topic. As usual, fake people annoy the hell out of me.
Fake people.
Well,
Sweet Jesus.
Well, first you have one of the places we promote this podcast is in our community group.
Right.
And one of the episodes went out, the one about impeaching Trump. One of the places we promote this is on social media and in our community group.
Since 90% of the time it's relevant to our community.
Well, everything is relevant to a community, wouldn't you say? I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Well, we've talked about Canada sometimes. That's not relevant to Cyprus. That's the ones I meant.
But when we've talked about Canada, if my memory serves me correctly,
you don't post it.
We compare. No, I always post it there. We compare and contrast. Isn't that relevant?
In some ways.
I mean,
it's just saying those ones are less relevant. The one you posted is 100% relevant.
Right. It was about the impeachment proceedings. And this crazy person who probably is a Trump is not my president person puts in there, don't post this shit here. Well, I responded, why is it shit? And they went on and on and on about how it's not relevant to the community.
And called you a moron.
And then called me a moron. So I then proceeded to respond in purposely writing it A, B, C, because I know that drives people crazy. So I did it on purpose. But I did it on purpose for that reason. And then pointed out that I'm the admin of the group, that it's the president of the United States is relevant to every community in this country. I pointed out that adults should be allowed to post what adults want to post. And clearly the person didn't listen to the podcast because they thought it was an article.
5% of me wonders if they didn't read what your name was and thought you were just the other dude that posts all of the right-wing Trump trash. But it's irrelevant. I understand that. But I wonder what set this person off by the title of a freaking podcast. That's all there was the title.
But my point is that even I see things in political groups all the time and I see the headline and I think, I don't really agree with that. And then I click it and I look at the article. Sometimes I read the article, every single word. Sometimes I skim the article, but I get the gist of what the article is about before I make a comment. Why on God's green earth would you comment on something that you have no clue what it even is? You call it an article when it's a podcast. You have no idea what you're making a comment about. So why make a complaint about it?
But does that even surprise you? Because
but people today are so they're offended by everything.
When they read the headline, they get all butthurt, and they comment straight out their ass without reading it. It was proved when you posted that article that was a troll. I don't remember what the title was, but the title was super offensive. When you go to the article, it's bam, I trolled you, you dumbass. And that one, you got all sorts of hate comments, all sorts, because people didn't even bother to read what the article was. They just read the headline and got pissed. And that's what she did. She read the headline and she got pissed because she's too fucking stupid to actually read the article and actually form an actual opinion.
But then what's more interesting is she makes the comment that we're just like the admins of the fascist community group, but yet she was still part of the group after calling me a moron.
If we were the admins of the fascist group, she would have been booted after the word moron was posted. Or she would have been booted 3 seconds after she blocked you.
Then she used the F word.
Oh, that's not allowed in the other group.
Exactly. And that's my point. But yet now take it a step further. She feels the admins of the other group, and I agree, are controlling.
Correct.
But what was she doing by telling someone, don't post this shit here?
Did you read my last set of comments to her?
No.
Oh, one of the last ones I posted was, and we're just like the admins of the other group? No, I think you're like the admins of the other group trying to control what people are saying.
Well, what is that? Like, and then she reiterated a second time, don't post this crap in a Cypress community group.
Yeah, well, I think we've established that this person does not have two brain cells to rub together.
But let's take it to where I was taking it. Why are people today so offended by everything? Everything is offensive.
Did you happen to take a look at the article that I posted? The how to choose to not be offended? I think that people don't want to listen to other people's opinions, and they don't want to bother to try to understand where somebody else is coming from, and they just don't care. And so being offended is easier because they can just shut people up with their offendedness.
Well, but okay. Does it have to do with what we said in our last episode, that people are into instant gratification when it comes to entertainment?
I'm sure it's similar. I'm sure it's similar in the sense that people are too impatient to have an educated conversation with somebody. But I also think a big part of it, and I think we've talked about this before too, is people aren't taught to critically think anymore.
Well, like, okay, so there's this guy, Jeremy Staten, and your article comes from jeremystaten.com, and you can look it up on Google. I'll even link to it in the show notes. It's called How to Choose to Not Be Offended. And, he talks about, there's reasons to find offense that surround us: bosses, employees, presidential candidates, religions, and he even makes a joke, Kentucky Wildcat fans. And he says that being offended is like an obligation. And he goes on to say that people seem to think that their reaction to things is outside of their hands. And you hear that a lot. I can't help it. It offends me.
Oh, I know. But, okay, you know what? I can buy that you can't help that something somebody said offends you, rubs you the wrong way, whatever. But what you can control is how you react to that. And if you react to it like a giant 2-year-old, then you fit in with society today.
Well, but he gives some really good pointers, like finding value in every person. He says, always be asking what they can teach you. Search for what you can learn. And it's true. You can learn something with everybody. Like on the Purely Politics group, which, by the way, anyone that's interested in politics, look up Purely Politics on Facebook, and it has like a
word cloud as
the picture.
Because there's two.
Join that one, and you can get involved in some good political discussions. But they like beat up on this lady Lisa all the time because she's very hardcore right-wing type person. And I always feel like what's interesting about her posts is that you can learn what a hardcore right-wing person, how they think.
Well, and she's never rude about what she posts. She just kind of puts her opinion out there and it is what it is.
And then the second one, learn to listen. It reminds me of that lady, Lori, who was the dog park proponent.
Oh
and
my God.
When Nelson made a comment about the measure that she claimed the owner of the racetrack doesn't agree with, and he pointed out in an article that the owner of the racetrack wrote the measure, she blocked him. And it says, learn to listen. Most of us don't. We listen to people we agree with because we already like what they're saying, but we rarely listen to anyone else. It's true. Everyone preaches to the choir, or that's what they'd like. They'd like to preach to the choir. And I always say one of the reasons why I always get attacked and berated online is because I'm very factual. And I don't attach emotions to what I'm saying. When I post something, I'm not posting it because I'm mad at you. I'm not posting it because I'm happy with you. I'm not posting it for any reason other than to provide information.
Well, what's interesting? To kind of hit his point a little bit farther home. When I first moved here and we started doing these podcasts, I feel like we were farther apart politically than we are now. But through having our discussions and like discovering other perspectives and respecting each other's opinions while we've had these discussions, I feel like I've definitely moved in your direction, and I can't speak for you. But your opinions, our opinions are closer.
Well, you actually finally got things right.
Shut up. I'm going to kick you.
You knew I was going to say that. You walked into that.
That doesn't make me want to kick you any less.
But he says something that I think is really important for listeners to understand. If someone is offending you, then it is a good time to stop talking and start listening. He even points out that makes it so you're less likely to say something you're going to regret later.
Interesting.
Then he says, Try something new. Ignorance leads to fear. It's true. When you don't know or understand something, you're afraid of it. It reminds me of the Middle Eastern people at the end of the hall. And when Alyssa would come here and the doors would be open when they first moved in,
She thought it was weird.
she was freaked out by it, though, because she didn't understand it. And I kept saying, that's how they were raised where they come from. That's how they cool off the place. They don't have air conditioning. They don't want to spend money on air conditioning, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So why be freaked out about it? I mean, like, I still say it's dangerous to do what they're doing, but I don't think it's weird to do what they're doing.
Well, they're making their choice. I mean, if I were them, I would spend a little bit of dollars and get the security door installed, but that's their call. Whatever.
Then he says one of the main reasons we're so easily offended is pride, and that it's so difficult to apologize when you're wrong. And that's true. Like, that was a big learning that I had a few years ago, was that in real life, and I separate what's online with what's in real life, but in real life, I'm not afraid to apologize when I'm wrong. But for some reason online, I guess because it's permanent and someone can throw it in your face later, it was always a difficult thing to do until I realized that it's the right thing to do. If someone else is right and you're wrong, you need to say so.
And there's no need to like apologize. Just all you have to say is, I didn't think of it that way. And then your pride isn't injured and you're not acting like a douche waffle.
And then it says, don't feel that it is your obligation to change people. Being a friend is about loving them where they are. Friends encourage and help. They find what a person needs and then seek to meet those needs. No strings attached. And that right there is a huge, huge, huge thing to remember. He says be their friend. I don't necessarily think you need to be everybody's friend, but you need to treat them the way you would treat a friend. You know, we have friends that say crazy things, in my opinion. And
It's an understatement.
And yet you embrace them and you meet them where they are. That's really important. Embracing people and meeting them where they are.
Right. You shouldn't try to change the friends who say crazy things. You should either just accept that's who they are and move on with being friends with them, or choose not to accept who they are and break off the friendship with them.
If it's something
Just
that
make
bad.
a freaking choice.
Or there's another option. Choose not to accept their opinion on that matter and don't have that discussion anymore.
Well, I was thinking like the big deal things.
I mean, there's people in my lifetime that I know that I would never talk politics with.
Right.
I just don't agree with them.
And there's people you don't talk about the homeless situation with.
Right.
And there's people you don't talk about racial issues with. Like, there's
Right.
just people you don't talk about those things with because you don't agree with them and you don't want to have a big fight with them. But you like the other 99% of them.
Right, which brings us back to a theme we've had for about the last 2 months. Just because we disagree on an issue doesn't mean we disagree on all issues. And I think that this article that you found and posted sort of brings that together in a nice, neat little package with his 5 little points for how to avoid being offended. Because let's face it, we do choose how to react to a situation. Like, I could send you a text message and be as blunt as all get out. Now it's up to you to react how you react. And depending upon how you react, that's going to determine how the rest of the conversation goes. Plain and simple. Like, that will determine it. And it is 100% within your power to choose how you react to something.
As long as you're not rude while being blunt. They're
Like,
two different
even-
things. I get it.
Like, well, that's why I specifically said as blunt as possible, but I didn't say rude. Right. But like, I understand, like, people say things like, oh, that's a hot button for me, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I get that, but it's still your choice to react the way you react. 100% it's your choice. And that is where people have gone off the rails, is they act as though they have no accountability for anything that they do. It's almost like someone's a puppet and they have their hand in your mouth and they're making your mouth move and say things.
There's a lot of people out there like that.
That's
There's
just
no
not-
accountability for anything they've said to people.
Then that's just not real. It's not realistic. It's not what our world should be. And it's part of why this country especially, I don't know how it is in other countries, but this country especially is so divided because people, I don't agree with that. I'm going to argue with them. I mean, look at that one group, that Indivisible 48 group. They drive me bananas because if you don't agree with them, they bash you.
Well, the divided bullshit is spreading. I ripped before the Canadian election, but only a couple weeks because, unlike here, Canadian elections only last 8 weeks. It's much nicer. Anyway, somebody posted, fuck Trudeau and fuck anyone who votes for him. And I was like, you can dislike him all you want, but telling people to fuck themselves for who they agree with is not okay. And it's not appropriate and it's not Canadian. And stop doing it. They were being super divisive. And so unfortunately, the divisiveness is spreading, at least to the Great White North.
But that kind of makes sense to me because people are people. And while it may take longer or you may take a different path, so it takes you a bit of more time to get there, at the core, people are people. And what makes people different at the core is culture, right? Like even between Canada and here, the differences that we have are extremely cultural. But the basis of who we are as human beings
is super similar.
Is pretty much similar across the board. And things that annoy us are similar. And yes, I know like I got a kick out of whatever that I don't remember what country it was. I think it was Sweden. He showed me those socialism statistics. They're bogus statistics. Like, why do we need to lie about stuff like that?
I'd be curious to know the real ones.
Because here's the thing. When you're trying to get your way on something, being honest is the way to be, because you want people to make an informed decision. And I think that's what this article is also saying.
Mm-hmm.
You're choosing to get offended over something that you don't even understand. Back to that lady. She doesn't know. She called it an article. She doesn't even know what it's about. She thinks she literally wrote on there that it was about President Trump's plans. We didn't talk about President Trump's plans.
She didn't listen. She didn't read. She's just a brainless idiot.
What we actually did was we said that it's all big giant waste of time on everybody's side.
I hope she's listening. But she won't be because she doesn't know it's a podcast.
It's stupid. It's just stupid. And it frustrates me because people get so easily offended, and it irritates me that people get so easily offended. And that brings us full circle back to where we started the show. So,
guess that means good night, everyone.
Hasta la bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Nightly Rant.
If you enjoyed the show, please give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Google Play.
If you didn't enjoy the show, please just ignore that previous request for a rating.
This has been a Yogi's Podcast Network production.